Hello and welcome. We're live with Collaboration Superpowers hosting this interview. Jurgen Appelo has been interviewing thought leaders in various management and leadership fields. And today we're here with Dr. John Kotter, and I will turn it over to Jurgen.
All right. Thank you, Eleanor. Hello, everyone around the world. Indeed, we have been interviewing Marshall Goldsmith and Bob Berg, and several others are upcoming. And today is John Kotter, Dr. John Kotter. We have here in this webinar. Hello, John. Thanks for joining.
My pleasure. All
right. So for the audience, Dr. John Kotter is a best-selling author of 18 books, including Leading Change and our Iceberg is Melting, and he is the world expert on change and leadership. And we're going to talk about his latest book, Accelerate, which is all about pursuing big opportunities in a world of unprecedented change. Now, before I ask my questions that I got after reading your book, John, can you explain to the audience what is your idea of a dual operating system for businesses, and do you think everyone is going to need one?
Well, the rate of change and the unpredictability of what's coming at us in a strategic sense is not going to go down. All the data says it's going to go up, so something new is needed, and I think we've got enough proof points now that we have the basic structure of what is needed, which is an organization that everybody would recognize. It's hierarchical in structure, divided sensibly into departments or silos, and runs on management processes that we all know, planning and budgeting and making sure the structure is right and staffing all the jobs with the appropriate people, picking the right metrics to make sure you're on plan, putting in measurement systems, et cetera, et cetera. That is terrific. As a matter of fact, it's a kind of a miracle that we ever invented that for taking complex situations, lots of products, services, whatever, around the world, and making it efficiently and reliably, the products or services, and delivering them reliably. The problem is it wasn't designed to handle the rate of change we're getting right now, and the strategic surprises that come at us. And the dual system means just simply we're going to have to add another piece that is much more like what you'd find in an entrepreneurial situation. It's not a hierarchy, it's a network with a center, kind of like a solar system. It's designed for speed and agility. It works off processes that look more like what leaders do, associated with vision and communication to everybody and alignment and lots of energy and motivation. And unlike a hierarchy, it can drop projects and start new initiatives in a second. That's part of the whole thing. And the two are put together hand in glove with not a separate staff. This isn't another big gigantic silo. It's just a part of the business that drives big strategic change, works with a hierarchy to figure it out, and then executes and make things turn left, turn right, innovate, etc. The devil is in details on this stuff, which we could talk about for some time. But the important point is the details, as we've written about in this new book called Accelerate, have been tested for 5 years now, or almost 5 years, with specific companies, and the results that they've gotten from this are, well, they're amazing. So I have some confidence that this really works in a number of settings, works internationally, within departments as well as whole businesses, public, private. So I think it's the new form for the 21st century.
All right. Well, it makes perfect sense to me, at least, that networks are known to be more adaptable than hierarchies, and hierarchies are known to be very efficient for exploiting certain opportunities. But do you think that all companies, all businesses inevitably will end up with such a dual operating system, being both a hierarchy and a network at the same time?
If you can find a place to hide, that doesn't, you're not being impacted by the global and technological forces, or you control your environment because you're a monopoly basically, and you could ignore these forces. No, you don't need this new form. But how many? I mean, just be practical. How many organizations are going to be able to find those kinds of safe harbors? Are going to have. I mean, even government departments these days are not monopolies in the sense that they have to fight and compete for budgets. Nonprofits, too, fight and compete vigorously for philanthropic funds and the like. And technology is just affecting everybody. And the speed with which it's hitting us all, you know, it just goes up and up and up.
Right. So you're saying basically reality is going to hunt down any organization that is trying to stay a hierarchy and force them to also become networks or else vanish.
That would be that's well put. That
Right.
would be my best guess.
All right. So in your book, Accelerate, indeed, is the title. You say that you have plenty of proof of accelerated change in business, and I think many people have noticed that as well. Do you think this is a temporary phenomenon? I have a little bit of knowledge of scientific ideas such as punctuated equilibriums in biology and phase transitions in physics. Is it something similar, or is this accelerated change the new normal?
Well, I hate to make predictions more than 15 or one should not make a prediction more than 12 months, but if you look at information over a broad sweep and draw kind of curves through it, the rate of change bounces around. It's not a smooth thing. It's not as if it goes up 10% every year or 5% every year. Sometimes it actually goes down for a few years in certain contexts, industries, etc. But if you look at the basic curve over the last 50 years, it's just, you know, going up and up exponentially. So in certain places it could go down for a year or two, but the general trend is very clear. I mean, you can look at all kinds of data, and the charts, if you back up and look at them for 50 years, or in some cases 150 years, they all look the same. So no, you know, who can predict 100 years from now what's going to happen? Because but for all practical purposes, for you and me and anybody else that's watching or listening to this, no, it's not just fluctuating up and down, it's going up.
Right. Okay. So for all practical purposes, indeed, it is safe to assume that the world will change faster and faster for anyone who's trying to survive with their organizations. I know a number of people, entrepreneurs and business experts who are trying to deal with this change by having organizations that are only networks and that try not to become hierarchies. So not the dual operating system, but just one operating system, like not combining MS-DOS with iOS, but just be iOS. What do you think? Is that possible?
I know entrepreneurs who try that all the time because they hate bureaucracies. No, seriously, that's fundamentally, they just hate it. They see the problems, they see how it slows innovation, and the number of people who have built businesses of any size without creating a well-managed hierarchical system is somewhere in the, between 0 and 0.
Right. Okay, so ultimately we're going to need a hierarchy to exploit certain opportunities. That's
to get the work to be able to actually make and deliver and collect and all the kind of normal work that has to happen every day. It is the most reliable and efficient system that humankind has ever invented.
Okay, all right. So I've read similar suggestions by experts for a couple of years. I must admit, your book is the most inspiring so far. That has a great vision on having a dual operating system. But other people have also hinted at informal networks in organizations. My own experience or knowledge is of a phrase called, or a term called, enterprise transformation communities, but other people use other words. How is the dual operating system different from, for example, a community, an informal community across the enterprise, or other examples that you've seen?
Oh, there are dozens, as you say, of if you will, steps in the right direction, but they've made a step or two in what they're getting for results. They're getting a little bit of kick over the traditional system. But the devil's in the details here. What we've learned from practice is that if you don't follow all of the fundamental principles behind this, and if you don't follow the basic processes behind this, and if you don't set up the structure right, everything, it starts to detract very, very quickly in terms of its power to speed you up, keep you going fast, keep you agile, innovate, etc. And we have, again, my confidence in this is based not on any logical or theoretical possibility. It's because this firm that was named after me that I helped co-found 5 years ago, the Kotter International Consulting Group, has been on a regular basis helping organizations do this. And the track record so far is, I mean, you know, it goes from kind of A- to A++ in terms of the results they're getting. So I'm working off of empirical, if you will, real life proof that the specifics, you know, if you put the kind of the 25 little boxes you have to check, that's the wrong metaphor, but the 25 things that you have to do to maximize this, I know that works. A lot of people have said some things that are true, but then they add on 6 more points that we know doesn't work. Well, I just talked to a month ago an organization, a big company that you would know, your audience would know, and they've set up kind of a network-like structure because they're desperate that their bureaucracy is killing innovation. Okay, and it has already done a few things. They're getting frustrated already that it's not doing more things. Well, they're going to get more frustrated still because it doesn't have all the elements that we have found, the specific elements that we have found that are needed, which is large numbers of people, that it's not a separate staff, it comes from the hierarchy, people volunteer, they're not being assigned. It's more the leadership stuff, not management stuff, that drives the whole system. The hierarchy and the network are not separated, you know, kept apart so one can innovate and not be killed by the other. They're linked together in all kinds of ways to make sure that one influences the other and vice versa. And it's these details, I think, based on some fundamental principles that make it as powerful as it is. And at least I haven't read anything so far that's come close to getting all these details right.
All right. So you're saying there's lots of stuff to get it done properly, and some people hinted at parts of the solution, or they got the first steps right, but they omit other steps. And I would agree, your book gives a great overview of all the things that you need to do to make those two operating systems work together closely. But there was one thing that I was wondering, John, when I was reading your book. So basically, we have two operating systems. One is good at exploitation of current opportunities, and the other is good at exploration, is finding new ideas, other big opportunities. Those are the terms that I would use as a systems thinker. What if a big opportunity is found in the network that the hierarchy is unable to deal with? What if you need a different hierarchy with different people and different departments and different processes?
But the whole point of the network, in the details, as I have found it to work, it's not just an opportunity finding machine. It's not just an idea generating machine. It's an execution machine, which means its job is working in conjunction with the people who run the hierarchy to spot the problems or opportunities that are coming at them, figure out what to do, and then to make the changes in the hierarchy that are needed to actually exploit that, or the additions to the hierarchy, or the whatever. Because remember, ultimately, it's going to be the hierarchy that's going to have to take this thing and make this product or deliver this service and do so efficiently. So one big difference between the details, again, of what we found to work and a lot of suggestions out there is that the network is, it's like entrepreneurs. Entrepreneurs just don't come up with great ideas and then sit down and wait for money to come in. They have to execute. They have to figure out how to make this stuff, or how to ship it and do it with a business model that actually makes them money and collect the money. I mean, they've got to do both the idea generation and the implementation. And it's the same with what we have found with the network. It's interesting how often executives immediately think it's a sophisticated modern suggestion box, if you will, that's being tagged onto the hierarchy. It's not. It's you know, Jeff Bezos at Amazon during his first few years, not just coming up with ideas, but actually setting up an organization, making something happen. And that's what the network that works in a dual system does. And a lot of what they make happen is adding on to or changing the fundamental system, the hierarchy, so it can take advantage of the big opportunities.
All right. Well, that sounds certainly sounds like a dual operating system where both of them are influencing and modifying the other, and one is maybe not more important than the other. They both evolve over time. Here's a thought that I would like to have your opinion on. There are some industries that you could see as the equivalent of companies that work in principle as networks, like the movie industry, for example. They create movies, and then for each project a hierarchy is constructed, and then it dissolves, and then the network creates another hierarchy for another movie project, and then it dissolves. Could you see something like that working for a company where basically the network is leading in, and then creating and dissolving hierarchies all the time, depending on the product and opportunities it sees?
Well, in some sense, all hierarchies do that these days. They have to. They put together interdepartmental task forces to look into specific projects, and once they've done whatever they're supposed to do, they disappear again. They work with joint ventures with other companies that after the thing gets going, it gets absorbed into one organization or the other, or shut down because what they've done, well, is absorbed into one organization or the other. And remember, even in the movie industry, so it's the norm out there. It's just not as dramatic as the movie industry. And remember, it's not as if the movie industry isn't full of hierarchies. It is. Those things they show you at the beginning, you know, MGM, and it used to be just one, you know, in the studio system. Now it's 2 or 3 or 4. They're all existing businesses in hierarchies with jobs and planning processes. They just create, in a sense, this unusual form that works for the movie industry of a gigantic kind of task force with outside contractors and people from the 2 or 3 production companies that are going to make it and market it. And then when it's over, that task force, which by the way does not work independent. I mean, it's kind of reporting up to the guys who have the money, as any creative person in Hollywood will tell you, with great frustration as he pulls his hair, saying this is no way to make movies. So, it's just kind of an extreme example of what happens all the time, well, that's it.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, well, and even within the movie industries, there are different solutions, like Pixar, the Disney company, for example. They are organized in a very different way as compared to other movie studios. So I suppose it really depends on the context, how the network and the hierarchy work together.
Pixar, I can't comment on, but I'd be willing to bet you at least a few euros that there is a CEO of Pixar, that he has an executive committee, and so on, and that they do planning, including an operational plan each year, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So, yeah. A wild and crazy group of people who somehow just kind of race around somebody's basement and produce movies. This is not.
I wish it were, but yeah, I'm afraid you're right. So one thing that stood out to me, well, many things stood out to me in your book, but one thing was about your use of the words management versus leadership. It's a favorite topic among many experts. I think your definition seems to be like management is what we need in the hierarchy, and leadership is sort of what we need in the network. Am I correct there?
It's not 100. It's not 100% zero. 100%.
But more or less.
The dominant force in a hierarchy is management, and the dominant force in a network is leadership. Not leadership in the sense of grand, you know, Charles de Gaulle or Winston Churchill or the like. It's normal people like you and I, even, who do a little something that is more leadership-like than management-like, that helps that whole thing function.
All right. Okay. And I appreciate you calling me as normal as you are, John. That's very much of a compliment, I suppose. What about the word governance? Now, I don't want to split hair over terminology. That's a favorite issue, a favorite discussion for many people. But it is a topic that comes up frequently. Do you see that as an equivalent of management, or is it a different topic?
Well, it's not something that I've really done anything with. I haven't studied it. I don't understand. So I'm not sure if I'm even competent to comment on it. I mean, I'd start with, and this goes down a rabbit hole, I think. So you just my first comment would be, please define governance.
All right. Okay. Well, that's a good answer, I suppose. Well, in my own opinion, I think governance would be more or less the same as management, only in a different context. And then, indeed, it needs leadership to get things done in a networked fashion. So I was just curious what your use of that word would be. My last question for now, we're nearly running out of time, is you mentioned hunting for big opportunities in your book, Accelerate. That's one of the responsibilities of the network, and these need to be defined or communicated to everyone. But to be honest, John, some of the examples you gave me, I think they are very inspiring for CEOs, but perhaps not so much for the ordinary system administrator or the product tester, like increase market share or increase sales. I can understand that the CEOs like that, but other people would just interpret that as, oh my God, more work. So,
no, and what we have found, and you're right, what we have found is that when you write down a statement about what a big opportunity is, and it needs to be short, a couple of paragraphs for communication purposes, if it doesn't have some emotionally tinged words in it, and believe it or not, for very competitive people, first or best is a very emotional word. It's not just a quantitative, rational word, but if it doesn't have other stuff like pride or legacy or best, even in the sense of best place to work or something like that, you're right. You're right. It sounds like a business case with financials only as a focus and very dry financials, as it were. It's not going to work. The best big opportunity statements that we've had are not only rational in the sense that a person who studied the business environment would say, this is a good idea, but they're emotionally compelling to the people, not necessarily to you and I, but to the people involved. And part of that is also not just the way they're written, but the way it's communicated inside the organization. Because we've had a few cases where, frankly, I would agree with you. The way it gets written, it seems to me a little dry. But the way it got communicated, who was in the organization, which wasn't you or I, and the way it gets communicated in a way that has a lot of, behind it. And it therefore does take on more of an emotionally compelling tone and feature, which indeed, as you were implying, I think, is needed and is an important part of this overall package.
All right. Yeah. Okay, I understand. So one person I know said used the word pizzazz. I have no idea how to define it, but that was the word that I thought. Yeah, that's what mission statement or mission statement or goals or objectives or whatever. And in your you use the word a big opportunity as an alternative to old-fashioned mission statements. But the pizzazz is often missing from those goals. It doesn't inspire people, and a sense of pride is one that
yep.
you should aim for. All right. What is your next book about?
Well, we're going to be spending some time working out, trying to communicate just like this, hopefully with people who ask as good questions as you do, which is
thanks.
Fortunately. Just to communicate and to get people to try what we found and what we're articulating in this book, and to even work out details that make it better. I have 2 or 3 options, including a way of telling this story that's in the Accelerate book, if you will, but using a pure story format, like I did in the book you mentioned at the beginning of this show. Our Iceberg is Melting is a fable, involving emperor penguins in Antarctica. And I've got an idea, we've got some material on a different, and another fable, which is great fun to write. And if you get it right, it's amazing how many people will read it and will do something on it, even though the intellectual folks, like my colleagues at Harvard, tend to hate those things. When it comes to the 7 billion of us on Earth, people tend to like it and read it and do something with it, which in the final analysis is what we want.
Exactly, storytelling. That's how we change the world. I'm quite sure, John. So I look forward to that next book. So, okay, so thank you for joining, and thank you for inspiring at least me, but I'm quite sure many other people besides, because I have not only lots of answers, but also lots of new questions because of your book, and I think that's a great thing. More things to discover, to find the answers to. That's what we need. So, thank you for joining, and well, I hope to see you sometime when I'm in the U.S.
Very good.
All right, thank you so much. And we're going back to Eleanor. Feel free to disconnect, John. We stay with the audience for just another minute. We'll go back to Eleanor. Thanks. Eleanor, you're off. You're offline.
Hello, yes, thank you. I'm so glad that you've had all these inspiring ideas on the eve of your book tour. Why don't you mention to people where you're taking this interview call from and why?
Well, right now I'm in Finland because we're going to start tomorrow in Helsinki, but then afterwards we will be traveling to Brussels, Belgium, and Sweden, Göteborg and Stockholm probably. We will be in Germany, in Hamburg and München and Frankfurt and Berlin, UK, Bulgaria, and USA, of course. That's after the summer. I'm looking forward to my trip to New York City and Chicago and San Francisco and lots of other places. So I hope to see some of the people in the audience at one of my workshops around the world.
So thanks. The fun starts tomorrow in Helsinki. Good luck. And thanks everyone for watching. And join the story of the book tour by coming to management30.com/workouts. You can download the book, and that's also where you can find links to these other interviews that we're doing with thought leaders. So stay tuned for the next one, and enjoy. Happy reading, everyone.
All right. Goodbye.